You gotta go.
You've had Wendy's nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new Saucy Nugs take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo, honey barbecue, garlic parmesan, or if you're a real heat seeker, try the spicy ghost pepper. I dare you, including the spicy variations of those three I just mentioned. That is 7 delicious ways to try the nugs you already love. Pick a flavor, grab some extra napkins, and prepare to nug like you have never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's got to be Wendy's at participating U.S. Wendy's. Welcome to Andy and Ari on 3. And yes, it is a Wendy's Saucy Take Wednesday, and we have lots of saucy takes coming off those college football playoff ranking reveal from Thursday night. Ari, we got a little fired up last night. You got twisted into a pretzel. That Tiger Claw showing up at number 12 had you feeling some kind of way.
Yeah, you know what? I actually came to the conclusion after the show, once the dust settled. It's like, I think I'm actually okay with Clemson being ranked ahead of the 3 SEC teams with 3 losses because, let's be honest, I'm not going to champion for any of those 3 right now. If you have 3 losses, again, my heart does not bleed for you. But, like, what about Arizona State? Like, Arizona State is all the way in the back, and they have wins against 2 teams that are in the top 25 at the moment. And it's like, what's the distinction between Clemson, who's 5 or 6 spots ahead of them, and Arizona State? Like, it doesn't make any sense. So
there you go.
Like that's the thing. It's like, I'm not going to sit here and go, God, Alabama should be ranked higher. Because I think that's like the thing is like, if you think Clemson is misranked, then you have to have an explanation for where or who should be ranked ahead of them, right? And like my explanation isn't going to be Alabama. Like Alabama could be out of the top 25 right now for all I care.
Well, your explanation could be Alabama if you wanted it to be.
Yeah, but like mine isn't, because like I'm not going to champion for teams that have failed. Like I think that like you could say that Alabama had failed its mission this year. So it's Clemson.
Yeah,
so,
I'd say they failed in Norman pretty badly.
They did. Yeah, that was an abject failure. But you look behind it, it's like, you're going to put Tulane ahead of Clemson? Probably not. Or you're going to put Iowa State? Probably not. BYU. But like Arizona State at 16, maybe it shouldn't have been an anti-Clemson column and more of a pro-Arizona State column, because Arizona State has a pretty solid resume. They're playing very well at the moment, and they are behind all these teams that have been, frankly, mediocre this year.
Well, and they can make the injury excuse too, because they can say one of our losses is one of the games we couldn't start Sam Levitt.
Right.
So that one actually makes a lot of sense when you say it that way, because if you stack Arizona State's wins up against Clemson's wins, Arizona State's got better wins than Clemson.
Yeah. And I think like where this gets difficult, Andy, is that like you kind of want to, like, if Clemson and Arizona State played, are we sure that Arizona State would win? I don't know. Probably not.
I think it'd be a good game.
But I think it would be a good game. Yeah. And I think that Arizona State has earned it. So it's kind of both. Yeah. So, like to me, this is the time of year where like actually getting wound up about the rankings makes sense. Cause like this is crunch time. Like we are two rankings away from the final field here. And, it's, where they put these teams now matters. And it also feels like Clemson is within puncher's range of making the field, and it doesn't really make sense to me. And like also too, as Skull put in the chat, like South Carolina lost its quarterback in the LSU loss, and like that could matter too.
Do the same, guess, you can make the same case. So Ari, let's get into the saucy takes, because my saucy take this week is that Clemson's going to get jobbed here. They're going to get jobbed if they win. If they lose, South Carolina is going to probably get jobbed. So somebody in the Palmetto State is going to get jobbed here. And I'll tell you why. They've now set this up where Clemson is number 12. If Clemson beats South Carolina, anybody ahead of them loses. You would reasonably expect Clemson to jump into their at-large spot. But if you think about it very hard, and that's what they're going to have to do next week, and then the week after when they actually do the rankings that count, are you really going to put Clemson, that got destroyed by Georgia and has no good wins other than South Carolina, in over Alabama or Ole Miss, which both beat Georgia and also both beat South Carolina and also have better wins than Clemson beyond that. So that's the thing. It doesn't so they've set the Tigers up for disappointment because they're going to screw them. I'm telling you right now, they'll look deep into their souls and they will screw them. The thing because they shouldn't be here in the first place.
I don't understand is why put it in a position to get to that point. Like if Clemson was 15, like would anybody be wound up right now? Like I don't even know what the point of putting them there is. So like I think I agree with you, but at the same time too, it's like I also don't feel like they're getting jobbed because they didn't deserve to be there in the first place. They're getting jobbed because the committee's like, hey, look, here's this bright shiny thing. No, never mind, because that's what they're gonna do. And here's how further reinforcing I know what they're gonna do. Here's the Ward Manuel answer when he got asked about it on the teleconference on Tuesday night. The question is, just wanted to ask you guys what went into the decision to putting Clemson at 12 over teams like Alabama and Ole Miss and what they've continued to do this season with the body of work they currently possess. And here's what Ward Manuel said. Well, Clemson slid up with some losses ahead of them by Alabama and Mississippi, and they had a win against Citadel, obviously, but that wasn't the big deal. Obviously, they're at 9-2 with only 2 losses. The teams right behind them have 3 losses. We just felt as a committee, as we looked at their body of work with 3 straight wins after their loss to Louisville, including back-to-back wins against Virginia Tech and Pitt, that they deserve to move up to that 12th position. Translation, oh shit, we put them in the wrong place, and now I have to explain why. Why do they even talk to the media? I don't know. It's just like, don't even talk to us. Like, because I feel like when Ward Manuel is giving us, and again, coming at a place of understanding that his job is very difficult, that like my daughter asking me why she can't have candy in the morning after she saw me eat an M&M at 9 a.m. Like that's how I respond. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's no, and like, if you're going to say, well, they have impressive wins over Pitt and Virginia Tech. It's like, what is the litmus test for impressive wins? Just saying things.
Well, neither of those is impressive. Like
wins.
There's a good chance Pitt's going to lose to Boston College on Saturday, and they will have lost their last 5 games. They start 7-0, finish 7-5.
I don't understand why they do that. It's not just Ward; it's everybody who's held the position. It's like, well, and they bounce back by beating Clemson Virginia Tech and Pitt. It's like, what does that mean? Who cares? We're not giving anybody credit for those wins. Why are we even talking about that right now? So yeah, I think it's bizarre, and I wrote that after the, I don't know if like flocking in on Clemson was the most important thing, but it just seems like bizarre to me. That's all.
It is strange, and the thing is, it also sets up South Carolina to be screwed because you and I both think South Carolina is going to win that game. I'm actually surprised that the line hasn't flipped. Clemson is still a 2.5-point favorite in that game, and we're going to preview that game a little bit later in the show, the actual game itself. But I think South Carolina probably wins the game. If they do, the reasonable assumption is they've beaten the 12th ranked team in your rankings. They probably should move up. But again, you're going to have a hard time moving them up over 2 teams that beat them head to head and have the same record. So you would need Alabama to lose the Iron Bowl or Ole Miss to lose the Egg Bowl. I think Ole Miss losing the Egg Bowl would be better for South Carolina because I think if you could do a head-to-head comparison with Alabama, you probably have a little better shot. Because Alabama really probably shouldn't have beaten South Carolina, and South Carolina was on the road in that game. And Alabama did beat Georgia, which is that's their best win, and that's what they're pegging on. But it was close. Ole Miss crushed South Carolina in Columbia. Ole Miss crushed Georgia in Oxford. So if they were to win the Egg Bowl, I don't think you want that head-to-head comparison between Ole Miss and South Carolina. Ideally for South Carolina, Bama loses the Iron Bowl, Ole Miss loses the Egg Bowl. You don't have to think about it. But the chances of both those things happening are pretty slim. So I think they're setting up South Carolina to get jobbed as well, because if South Carolina wins this game, they're going to be like, woo, we won. Yeah, we're moving up. We're going to be in striking distance of an at-large. Just, whatever happens, we got a shot. And then the rankings are going to come out and they're going to be behind Ole Miss again.
Yeah, but I also think too, and I don't even know if there's much opportunity. Your prediction was that this would have been a good saucy prediction too, but that there will be 2 what the hell results this weekend. I think that the teams that we're talking about would benefit greatly from a team that we already have slotted in losing.
Mhm.
Like if Indiana
Yes.
were to somehow get shocked and lose to Purdue or something like that
Yes.
happens, where you kick out a team that we're already taking up a spot, then you have to. Because here's the problem right now with all the teams that are in the field, everybody is comfortably in and everybody is comfortably out. Like there's no debate on who should be in and who should be out right now. There's nobody in the field that you did or I did or that you saw on television last night where you could say, well, actually, they shouldn't be in. A team that's out should be in, right? Like, so there's a pretty clear line of distinction between in and out.
Ari, you and I say that, but there are people watching right now, and I see them in the chat, and people who are not participating in the chat who are also watching or listening, who are going, how can you say that? Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. They have no business being in the bracket. Indiana hasn't beaten anybody. They have no business being in the bracket. There are people who think Tennessee doesn't belong in the bracket. There are people who think SMU doesn't belong in the bracket. So
yeah,
there's plenty of room for debate here.
Everybody like that exists, but like I'm dealing in rationality here. And like when you look at the resumes that SMU and Indiana possess, and then because it's like if you say, well, how could Indiana be and they haven't beaten anybody, then who do you put in? And then once you open up that can of worms, it's like there's 5 mediocre examples of teams that could go in instead. And it's like, well, Indiana is clearly the better choice than those 5 teams that have lost 3 times or have gotten their doors blown off or whatever you have to choose from. So the thing that's going to put this thing off the rails is if Indiana loses or Tennessee loses to Vanderbilt or somebody loses and they get knocked out of the thing, then you have to start picking between those 4 or 5 teams. It's really hard to pick between those 4 or 5 teams. Luckily, 2 of those 5 are playing each other, so that'll take care of itself. But then you'll still have 3 teams to choose from, all of whom have beaten and lost to each other, and or common opponents, and it becomes very murky. So, like that's the problem. There's just nobody to put in if it's not for the teams that are already in. Like I don't.
Well, you're assuming that a 3-loss team can't get in. I'm not. Like
no, what I'm assuming
there's a good chance a 3-loss team's going to get in if some stuff happens.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that there are 4 or 5 teams with 3 losses to choose from, and they're indistinguishable, which causes a problem.
Yep, and it's like we said last night. They have problems, and that's why they're down there. They're down there because they have problems. Like,
yeah,
they all have flaws, or they wouldn't be ranked where they're ranked. So we will have to see what happens. But I am sure that because of the way they did this, whoever wins the Clemson South Carolina game is going to be sorely disappointed when the rankings come out next week.
Hey, can I make an admission to you?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want Alabama in the playoff. But if they make the playoff, oh my God, the column I'm going to write. I'm going to need some sound effects. You wanted this. So there are a lot of people, like when I put out the 22 teams that are still alive, Andy.
Mm-hmm.
And Alabama was on the list. Everyone's like, Alabama's getting, like, people are enraged by the notion that Alabama could still get in. And I'm cautioning people here who are listening, if you're not there already, that the system that we put in place made this possible. So I don't know if it's going to happen, but there's a pretty clear path to me for Alabama to get in if one thing happens. And I feel like you're the master of, it's November, weird things are going to happen. Like one weird thing happens, Alabama's in, I think.
See, Ari and Zach don't get it. It will be beautiful, Ari. All the people who wanted the 12-team playoff will have it blowing up in their face. Complaining, getting mad, engaging in it, and then excitedly watching the games, which is what's going to happen, is the whole point.
Yeah.
That's not a malfunction. That is what you want. Right.
Yeah. But if South Carolina got in, people would not be excited to watch the games?
Like, they would be. They would be.
What I'm
saying is,
people are always going to be
excited. You're saying the system is what makes it possible for Alabama. Yeah. Alabama pisses people off.
I know.
No matter what.
I just don't think that it's like if your mother tells you not to put your hand on the stove because it's hot, and then you put your hand on the stove and you get upset or mad at her because you burnt your hand, Like that's kind of how I feel. It's like you can't champion and root and
your mother tells you don't do more of the thing that's insanely popular and makes you lots of money, and you do more of the thing that's insanely popular and makes a lot of money, and you make more money. That's what this is.
I just don't think that you could be a champion for something and then get mad at the result of it. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't compute to me.
But people are stupid, Ari.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm going to write a column saying this is stupid. If you're mad, then you don't like the 12-team playoff. And if you're happy, then this is what you wanted. Like, because that's what it is. So people are going to watch the 12-team
people
playoff.
Complain. People just want to complain about things, though. They like complaining. Have you not figured that out yet?
Yeah, I know. But it bothers me that I just live in a world of rationality and reason.
Michael says, I'm not stupid. Michael, it's a quote from Men in Black. A person is intelligent and rational. People are, I don't get it exactly right, the Tommy Lee Jones quote, but people are skittish, scared animals.
But you can at least see what I'm saying, right? Like, if you want something, then don't get mad about what you want, right?
You get mad. Like it bothers you that people like to complain and don't seem to have any sort of consistency in their argument.
Yes.
Okay. Welcome to humanity. That's how it works. Like, yes, there are people who in their heads catalog, well, here's what I've said in the past, and logically, this is how I should, but most people don't think that way. Most people are like, I'm mad now.
Andy, you got married really, really young.
Yes.
But for me, when I was dating in my 20s, my number one turnoff when it came to women was irrational thought or being irrational or angry. And the reason why I fell in love with my beautiful wife, who's right there, is because she's a rational person who, when she argues something, she has a point. She doesn't go off onto tangents. She goes off the tangent. She's a woman, but like she always is rational. And if you are a person who argues about things that don't make sense, it just is it just bothers me. And I'll never know.
I know. And I love how much it bothers you, because remember, we cover college football for a living. We are deep in this, in the weeds all the time. The people who consume our show, the people who watch the games, the people who are going to watch the college football playoff, it is not the most important thing in their lives. They're not thinking about it that hard all the time for the most part. A lot of our audience is, because they're sickos like us. But they're not thinking about, what did I complain about 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Now, Eric, thank you for giving me the Men in Black quote. A person is smart. People are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals, and you know it. It's one of the greatest quotes in movie history. I love that quote. You've never seen it because you don't like sci-fi movies. But
I have seen that movie, but I was 11. And I used to go to the skating rink. Here come the Men in Black. And that was the song when we were, going in circles with the rollerblades. And I had a beeper.
You know what the skating rink song was in my era?
What?
Stevie B. Because I love you. My heart is an open door. That's a couple skate song right there.
Yeah, but like Men in Black was like, kind of like,
you get the light show going.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like you were like
absolutely
going around. Dude, the skating rink is like, I don't know if everybody feels this way, but like in terms of like peak humanity, like when you were a kid, you were skating, there were some girls that you had a crush on that were skating around the rink with you. And then off to the side, you had your parents over there opening up pizza boxes for everybody to eat. Now that's peak happiness for me. Like, I don't know. That was, like those
it is hard. It's hard to beat. My kids had a skating rink phase in middle school. It brought me back. It definitely brought me back. Did you
get out there?
No.
Oh.
I'm not graceful, Ari. The one thing we've learned is I'm not graceful.
When I was a kid, it was like during the X Games, like aggressive inline skating phase. And I was never very good at like grinding down poles or anything like that. But like I was a pretty good rollerblader when I was a kid.
I need pictures and video, please.
Yeah,
Mr.
I never went into like
the
half pipe.
Make it happen.
But like my childhood coincided with the like Brink movie, where everybody was into, rollerblades. And now I feel like people laugh at you if you wear rollerblades, because I've thought like, what is an activity? Because I live around a lake, like a 30-second walk to a pretty large lake with a path. what could be my activity for cardio out there? And like it has crossed my mind that like rollerblading would be a good one. But I asked my wife if I got rollerblades, what she would think. And like, she's like, you can do whatever you want. People do whatever they want around the lake. But she was laughing. Like,
I'm imagining a giraffe on skates for some reason. And you're not shaped like a giraffe, but
yeah,
I'm just
a large
imagining
man.
the legs going all different directions.
But like, is there a way to be a man in pushing 40 to rollerblade for cardio and not be pointed and laughed at?
Ari, the only way to do that is to have the inner self-confidence that radiates from having a smoking hot wife, where you just go, you know what? I don't care what you say about me. I look good. That's all you can do.
I'll do my best. You can do.
Ari, we need your saucy take.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, oh, God, it's me, Dan Sampson. Yeah, see? Interconference radiating.
My saucy take is that Indiana is actually a top 7 football team in America. And I know that people think that like that is insane. I know that they put up 151 yards of offense against Ohio State. They had a rough day with special teams. But when you look at what they did from a body of work standpoint, does losing to Ohio State by 23 or whatever it was invalidate the rest of the body of work? Like,
okay, what's the most impressive part of the body of work?
Blowing out everybody on your team by 14 or more points for 10 consecutive
until
weeks.
Michigan.
Until Michigan, yeah. I think that's really
impressive. Which of those blowouts is the most impressive?
They don't have any good wins. I know you're like, what do you want me to say?
No. I want to parse this. I actually think it's Nebraska, but that's.
I mean, I think Nebraska was a really impressive, dominating win against the bowl eligible team. They blew out Washington. I mean, going on the road at Michigan State.
They didn't blow out Washington if you watch that game, but they did beat them by 14, and it was good.
So I think that the body of work from start to finish needs to still count. Now, I don't know if they played Georgia or Alabama, if they'd get their doors blown off. But what I do know is that there aren't a lot of other teams to even choose from at this point. Like Alabama looked putrid on Saturday, right? Like they are they awful. Talented? Are they talented? Is their fifth year really, really good? Yeah, we know. But like, are we 100% certain that Indiana couldn't hang for 4 quarters with Alabama after what we just saw on Saturday? Like,
no, we're definitely not certain. If you say you're certain, you haven't watched Alabama play this season.
And I didn't put them in the top 5 because I didn't want to put them in the same tier as Oregon and Ohio State and even Georgia at the end of the year. But like when you get from 7 to 15, I don't really know that it's that distinguishable. But I mean, like this, like how many teams would be 11-1 with its schedule? A minimum of 20, maybe. But like you watch college football as much as I do, Andy.
I don't think 20 teams would be 11-1 with that schedule. I don't.
A lot of teams lose games because it's hard to win 10 in a row like that. It's like it's not just did you play and beat Alabama that proves it. So the thing that just irks me a little bit is that Indiana and what they did was impressive. We spent a lot of time talking about what they did on this show. Because they went and lost to Ohio State, that doesn't erase everything we talked about. We had Kurt Cignetti on the show. We talked about, Andy, I think you even picked them to cover against Ohio State. I think the reason why you did that is because you know that they're a good football team.
Right, they're consistently good. They're disciplined. Yeah, they do. So they do the little things well.
That to me is the take. So people are going to go nuts. They're going to make the playoff, and I think they deserve to do so. And you know, I don't know. I don't know if that's crazy or not, but you help me out here. But like,
I don't think it's crazy. I just
think they could beat Miami. Like, you don't think they could beat Miami, who's number 5?
I do think they could beat Miami. Here okay, Ferris in the chat says, who would IU be favored over in the top 12? Maybe SMU? What would the Indiana-Tennessee line be on a neutral field? I don't think it would be that big.
You know what I'd love to see? Indiana-Penn State. I'd love to see that game.
I'd love to see Indiana-Tennessee. I think since we already had the hypothetical argument for a whole week, let's just play the game.
Yeah.
And we may get the game. It's entirely possible we get that game. So
it's like, I don't know. Do you think Indiana is going to, if they get matched up with Tennessee or Notre Dame or Penn State in the first round, that they're going to lose by 30? Like, is that what you think is going to happen?
No, I don't. Because those aren't Ohio State.
That's what I'm
like
saying.
Those teams aren't Ohio State level talent.
I think when people say face a real team, they're saying it from the standpoint of watching them go on the road to Ohio State, who is the only super team in America this year. Like,
now, Producer River,
that's not the bar.
Producer River's a massive Tennessee fan. He thinks Indiana might be favored against Tennessee if they played in Bloomington. Now, Indiana's not going.
I don't know about that.
Indiana's not hosting a game, so you're going to have to probably figure out what they'd be on the road. Like, if you put that game at Neyland, I think Tennessee's favored by 3.5, 4, probably.
Yeah, and the point here is just remember who they played. Remember the fact that 14 of Ohio State's points were special teams situations, and the last touchdown that they scored was on I don't know why. Did you go back and watch that? Because we were like getting set up for the show, but like they were doing a kneel down formation and punched one in there at the end. Like the score did match. Like it was a blowout, but like had they not fumbled the punt at the end of the first half and played hard,
right?
Like,
that was 7 free points they handed to him.
Yeah, and then come out of the gate, and they were going to win the middle 8, and then they blew the punt, and then Caleb Downs returned the punt for a touchdown and spotted them 14 points in the middle of the game, which effectively ended it. Like, things happen. I don't know if I'm ready to just say they stink because they didn't play well against Ohio State. That's all. Rick
in the chat says, will the committee rig the matchups for SEC versus SEC and Big Ten versus Big Ten or SEC? They're not going to rig the matchups. It's funny because I see people complaining every time I do bracketology because they're like, you put the SEC teams against the SEC teams. They're not going to do that. I'm like, they're going to rank the teams, and wherever they wind up is where they're going to go. So in this case, I have Georgia.
Big Ten.
Yeah. If you use the CFP rankings, they've got Georgia playing Tennessee again in Athens where they already played.
And guess what? That's what'll happen to me about this playoff system is if it comes down to a bunch of SEC like Tennessee and Georgia, it's like the entire SEC's regular season was them playing each other, and at the end of the day, when they all get in, none of those games were going to have turned out to matter.
Well, but what if you get an SEC game that you didn't get? What if you get South Carolina, Texas?
I just don't want to watch. I don't want to watch a rematch of a SEC game that we've already seen that didn't have an impact on who made the field.
Well, guess what? You're going to get a rematch if that's how the numbers work out.
No, I know. I'm just saying I hope that it's between the SEC and the Big Ten so we can actually get some matchups to see who's like really conference of like Tennessee not getting knocked off by Georgia in the first round of the playoff is not interesting to me.
Yeah.
I'll watch it and I'll love it, but
Texas first round matchup. That'd be fun.
Yeah. And like you're right, they're gonna do what they're gonna do, but like I would much rather watch like Notre Dame, Texas, Tennessee, Indiana, Georgia, Penn State, so we can actually get to the bottom of who. I don't want the SEC to knock each other out in the first round, so all I have to hear all offseason was the SEC beat each other up in the regular season and the postseason. I want to actually see how good they are.
It would be more fun that way, but they're not going to rig it that way. It is going to be what it is. Producer River, you've got a saucy take.
Look at him. Look at him.
Yeah.
Here comes the ghost pepper. Let's go. Bring it.
There we go. All right. USC is upsetting Notre Dame on Saturday.
Why?
Because, so Benjamin Morrison for Notre Dame, out. He's been out since Stanford. Been out since Stanford. Look at the game since Stanford. What teams are able to throw the ball? The last 5 games that Notre Dame's played, what teams are able to throw the ball?
Oh, boy. And there was no Aaron Philo or Haynes King in that Georgia Tech game, so that would be nobody.
Exactly. What is Lincoln Riley known for?
Throwing the ball and terrible defense, but the defense is better this year.
Defense, yes. But the last team they played that could throw the ball, Louisville, they beat by 7.
Oh boy.
I think.
All right, he's talking me into it.
I think USC can throw the ball. And if Lincoln Riley has any kind of juice left, any kind of oomph, I'm all in.
It's a pretty big question, though. Also, we have to take a minute to laugh at how USC put Lincoln Riley in the graphic of the new Kendrick Lamar album. Did you see that? Where they posted
That was
They posted they spliced Lincoln Riley into where Kendrick was standing on his new album, and they were like, USC is LA, kind of like gloating about UCLA, and all their fans were like, guys, we're 5-6, please delete this.
yeah. Not like us. Not like us.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So this is the thing. I don't think that's going to happen. I hope it doesn't, because I got some shekels on this. But the thing that is interesting is that this does seem like one of the most likely spots of the weekend for a team that's currently in to get knocked out, right? Like if you wanted to play that game, pick your spots. Isn't this a spot that you might pick just from a spot standpoint? On the road, across country, against a semi-functional team, and everything's been too easy all year since the NIU loss? I don't know.
Let me poop in everybody's Cheerios here.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
You saw USC Michigan, right?
Yep.
Imagine if Michigan had a functional offense and an even better offensive line. That's what's going to happen here.
You think
Notre Dame's going to lean on USC, and the dam's going to break in the second half, and they're just going to be running for 7 yards a carry.
Now, to be fair, all of USC's losses have been one possession, right?
They have. USC's not been bad. It's bad that they've lost 5 games. They have not been horrible in any game.
Yeah, and Notre Dame, they lost to Northern Illinois.
I've heard that mentioned a few times in the chat.
A few times.
Wait, they did?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good take. It's a good take. I mean, it's a good spicy take. I don't know if I believe it, but it's a good
that's the ghost pepper right there. That is the ghost pepper. No doubt.
Now,
no doubt.
And to also,
didn't you put your real life money on it, River?
Yeah. Plus 220.
That's what I like. I like a man who's going to come onto the show and back up his hot takes with his checkbook. That's what I do. When I say something or I pick something, I bet it. I bet it like a man.
The line has changed from 6.5 to 7.5. So if you like the one possession games with USC, smart play is 7.5 as well. And I don't know if this really matters anything. I don't know how hostile of an environment USC is, but this is only Notre Dame's third true road game. Maybe Notre Dame has some fans running out on the field with them this year.
I hope so. They got the money for it. Wouldn't that be awesome if everybody running on the field this time was a Notre Dame fan? I'm pretty sure they revamped the program after the Penn State game, but I would take that.
I just want to see Notre Dame lose on CBS. I think it'd be funny.
River sent me a text. It was like yesterday or 2 days ago saying, "You don't really think the SEC sucks, do you?" And like I was like kind of laughing about it. But like now you're picking the game that could like open the floodgates back up for the SEC. Like it's just like, so I see what you're doing here and I'm on to you. Okay. You're getting the SEC back on the bus.
He's speaking it into existence.
Let me ask you this. What happens if Notre Dame loses and Texas A&M wins the SEC championship?
Well, that just keeps Georgia in probably.
Does it knock Texas out? 10-2 Texas versus 10-2 Notre Dame?
That's a great question because they would both have lost at Texas A&M.
But Notre Dame would have better wins.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
But it does open up that extra spot. So
it does.
You may be able to figure it out. Producer River, you get the spicy ghost pepper for the day. No question. And if this happens, it's going to make for a hell of a show on Saturday night. It's going to make for a hell of a next few days before we wait for the rankings to come out. And I feel like everybody's kind of twisting themselves in knots, and it's related to your own fandom. You want your school to win. Like Producer River knows that if Notre Dame loses, that helps Tennessee. As long as Tennessee beats Vanderbilt, like maybe Tennessee's hosting a playoff game if Notre Dame loses. And that's we're all just, all politics are local in college football. And your fandom should reward you, obviously, mentally, spiritually, where your team plays well and you're happy, but it also should reward you financially. And Wunderfan is a first of its kind college football stadium rewards app where fans earn real rewards simply by cheering for their favorite team. All you need to do is head to the App Store, download the app, check in once you get to the game or tailgate, and let your earnings grow. It's that easy. During each game you attend, you'll earn in the background once you press start. So once you have enough earnings, you can redeem for gift cards to your favorite brands like Dick's, Fanatics, Lululemon, Home Depot, and more. Even ticket giveaways and fun contests that you can use your points to enter. So new rewards are added weekly. Right now, users will get 50 free Wonder. That's the currency within the app just for signing up, and 40 more free Wonder if you use the code STAPLES. That'll score you a $10 off Fanatics code and a chance to win tickets to the national title game. Just head to the App Store, search Wunderfan, that's Wunderfan, and start being paid for your fan loyalty. Wunderfan, where it pays to be a fan. All right. A lot of fans of a lot of teams are going to be watching this South Carolina-Clemson game on Saturday, Ari. Let us get into our actual preview of this game, because we've had folks in the chat coming after us both ways, Clemson fans, South Carolina fans, reminding us that not only did Lenora Sellers get hurt in the LSU game, Lenora Sellers and Rocket Sanders were both hurt in the Ole Miss game. Sellers was limited. Sanders, I believe, was out completely. This is a healthy South Carolina team going up to Clemson on Saturday. This feels different than 2 years ago, where South Carolina had just pulled the surprise win against Tennessee and then went and beat Clemson. I feel like most people who've been watching the last 5-6 weeks are on South Carolina here.
Yeah, I mean, I picked South Carolina outright. And, again, Mr. Prisoner of the moment, it's pretty easy to get wrapped up in how well South Carolina is playing, and that Louisville game is still stuck in my head. Like, I just don't think Clemson's very good. And I don't think that we've seen anything from Clemson to prove otherwise. And, you can't – people in the chat, I think, are probably on board with what I'm going to say here. You can't nag Indiana because they didn't play a good schedule and then prop up other teams that have played a harder schedule, but have lost the only 2 games that they've played against good teams and have beaten nobody either, right? Like, it doesn't make any sense. You can't.
If you have problems with Indiana, you also have problems with Clemson.
Yeah, and probably should have bigger ones, because Clemson, I think, got dominated worse than Indiana did in their game. Maybe had more yardage, I think, but the Georgia game was ugly. So I just, there's not much to like about them. Like, what's the path to victory for Clemson? Turning South Carolina over, hoping Lenore Sellers has a bad game. Like, I just don't like their offense. It's looked explosive at times. I like Crazy Legs Klubnik when he gets out into the open field. Like, they've done some things.
But the thing is, just does Crazy Legs Klubnik, Cade Klubnik is who we're talking about, the quarterback for Clemson, who has, it's interesting. I just was looking at his rushing log, and obviously sacks get backed out of your rushing stats, but he's had some pretty key runs in their wins. Like, he's faster than people realize. The thing is, I don't know how fast he is against this defense. When you have Dylan Stewart and Kyle Kennard coming off the edge at you,
yeah,
they make everybody look slow in comparison.
I think that's the reason why I like South Carolina just in general as a team, because their defensive line is so good and they've got a really exciting quarterback. So, they have pieces in place, the same pieces that I really liked about Ole Miss that didn't show up last week, unfortunately. But when you have a really good defensive line and a good quarterback, you have a chance in every game you play. Yeah.
So Lenore Sellers, if we look at his PrizePicks number, if you're not playing PrizePicks, download the app. Use the code STAPLES when you sign up. Play $5, get $5 instantly. Best daily fantasy game in America. So Lenore Sellers in this game, his passing number is 195.5. Cade Klubnik's is 231.5. What they're saying is they don't feel like Lenore Sellers needs to dominate through the air, because South Carolina can dominate on the ground, be it with Lenore Sellers or with Rocket Sanders. Rocket Sanders' number in this game is 73.5 rushing yards. And I think if you get a more than on both of those numbers for South Carolina, they're winning the game. Especially if you've got Lenore Sellers contributing some with his legs as well.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I think that we could be looking at a Clemson doesn't score very much game here.
I think we are too. I think the South Carolina-Texas A&M game is a good question, or a good comparison here. Clemson is a little better throwing team, not as good of a running team as Texas A&M, but South Carolina that pass rush can absolutely put you in a blender, can cause some negative plays. And then South Carolina can control the clock, control the tempo of the game with its offense. And I think that's where you're going to have a problem. Like if Rocket Sanders is having a good game, and that was a really good Rocket Sanders game against Texas A&M. I think South Carolina dictates the pace of everything.
Yeah. And I think they're just like I know Clemson's got some dudes, but just isn't South Carolina just built in a way from a physicality standpoint that just makes you fall in love with them? Like the things, the elements that we've seen from teams that we are accustomed to playing on this stage, I think South Carolina possesses. So, like, to me, like, they are just the better football team, and I don't understand, maybe other than them just being on the road, why they're not favored in the game.
I wonder about it too, and I do know Vegas does respect history quite a bit, and then this rivalry's been pretty lopsided through the years, other than that one period where Steve Spurrier beat Clemson 5 times in a row. Like Clemson has pretty much dominated the rivalry. So it's hard, I think, for anybody who does take history into account to say, oh, South Carolina is clearly better here. But I feel like they are. I feel like based on what I have watched over the last 6 or 7 weeks, that South Carolina is better than Clemson.
Yeah. And like the fun thing with South Carolina is that they have more sellers in the future too. So,
here's a great question from Skull in the chat. Is Sellers a top 3 quarterback in the NCAA in 25? I'm hoping this question is a video game question. Like, is Sellers a top 3 rated quarterback in college football 26 when it comes out next summer? I'm going to say yes on that. I think he will probably be the quarterback you most enjoy playing with in the video game next year. Is he going to be one of the top 3 in the country next year? That I don't know, but I think he's going to be in the conversation for sure.
Where is he now in this year?
Okay, all right. Let's start in the SEC. Who would you rather have in the SEC? And we're talking about for right now and also for the next couple of years.
Am I insane to say that I'd rather have Sellers than Beck?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, because that's how I.
Would you rather have Sellers or DJ Lagway?
DJ Lagway.
Okay. Nico or Sellers?
I think DJ Lagway would be the quarterback if like you get the future too. I don't think there's a quarterback in the
DJ's the one you're taking for the whole country.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, DJ's number 1.
Nico or Sellers? You had to think about it.
Sellers.
I thought you were going there. Okay. Nussmeier or Sellers?
Sellers.
Okay. And so that's the SEC, and we could move into the other conferences. We could branch it out into the other conferences.
Andy, you did ask quarterbacks. Like, I think Sellers has probably played better than those guys this year, but you also put in like very high ceiling guys, like because like Nico, like you could play that clip in 2 years and I could look like the biggest moron on the face of the earth. And like I'll sit here right now and tell you, like I don't know how
here we go.
Close Nico's going to get to reaching a ceiling.
I like this game, by the way. So we'll wrap up our South Carolina Clemson preview, and I'll once again say download the PrizePicks app, use the code Staples, play $5, get $50 instantly. Let's play a little quarterback futures since we're here.
You saw the one in the chat, right? That one's got me. Yeah.
DJ Lagway or Arch? Who you taking? Quarterback future.
DJ.
I think it's a tough decision, but I think you probably made the correct decision there.
Did you see that throw? You were there. You saw it in person.
Yeah, you're talking about the LSU one where he's
that AI.
The LSU game. Both edge rushers have beaten their guys. There's a linebacker coming, twisting around. The edge rushers are about to hit him. They're about to sandwich him. The linebacker has his hands wrapped around Lagway's waist. So Lagway can't step into the throw. He throws it with a flick of the wrist. It goes, he was probably, 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage. So this ball travels 42 yards in the air on a rope, exactly where it needed to be, in the only place the receiver could catch it. There are not many people who can make that throw.
That was to the sideline too, right? Or was that a different one?
No, it was kind of up the hash.
Did you see the one on Saturday when you were there, obviously, that you did see, where he was being sacked, basically, and he threw it off his back foot with his feet off the ground, like 15 yards to the sideline?
There's another one that I think actually resulted in an interception, or maybe it should have been an interception. I can't remember if the Ole Miss player caught it or not, where he did a sidearm throw, kind of like, the Mahomes sidearm thing, and the camera had a great angle of it, where you just see it coming, and it hits the receiver in the hands. And it just bounces off the receiver's hands and toward the Ole Miss player. But if the receiver catches that, it's just like, whoa. So it is. He's done a lot of that, and it's still a pretty limited sample size. So yeah, if we're playing quarterback futures, I think DJ Lagway is the guy you're taking. But Lenora Sellers is up there. And I'm trying to think in the other leagues, because we think about the really good players in the Big Ten. Dylan Gabriel's out of eligibility. Will Howard's out of eligibility. Drew Aller's probably going pro. Curtis Rourke is out of eligibility. So is it the young, does Dante Moore come in now at Oregon and become what we thought he would be? There's a lot of unknowns at quarterback. So if you have Lenora Sellers, DJ Lagway, Arch Manning, in the chat, I saw Sam Levitt, which was a great one, the Arizona State quarterback. There's not that many QBs coming back that we're going to be like, these guys are the dudes next year.
Yeah. Well, this year, coming into the year, we had a star problem at the quarterback
Kevin
position,
Jennings,
right?
Producer River mentions SMU quarterback.
Yeah, Kevin Jennings is a good one too. I put him in my top 10 of the Heisman this week.
Yeah.
He's having a really good year.
Deservedly so.
But from a star power standpoint, I think DJU and Arch, if both of them, when both of them come into next year, as the starters of their teams, could bring back the Caleb Williams stardom aspect that we don't have this year.
Yeah, there's not a superstar quarterback this year. So I think that's where the Heisman race has come down to Travis Hunter and Ashton Genty. I think if there was a superstar quarterback, it'd be a little more muddled. But yeah, there's not that guy. But we just mentioned a few that could be that guy next year, and that's very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, Arch is going to be that guy. He's Arch.
Well, he's going to get that attention.
Yeah, right.
But one guy who's not going to be in college football next year, at least coaching it, we don't think, is Mack Brown. He got fired yesterday at North Carolina. You had a really good column at On3 already about. I did, of course, I read it.
Oh, thanks.
Come on. About if Matt can't do it, who can? I do want to push back on that a little bit.
Okay.
Because I have the North Carolina hot board out. The first name I have on the hot board is John Summerall at Tulane. I feel like this was a move to go get John Summerall, because John Summerall is one who, if there were SEC jobs open, he'd be at the top of the list for all of them. He would have been Kentucky's coach had Mark Stoops gotten the Texas A&M job. And I think the feeling is, if you don't try to get him and lock him up now, some SEC jobs will open and they'll get him next year. And if you get somebody like that, it will solve the issue that North Carolina has had really since Butch Davis was there. Through the Larry Fedora and Mack Brown eras, they were never good on defense. They could never field an effective defense. If they hire John Summerall, they will have a good defense. And let's be right. It sucks because we don't like to predict players that aren't in the transfer portal going somewhere. But Mensa, Tulane's quarterback, if he were to follow John Summerall from Tulane to North Carolina, he would instantly become one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's the deal with North Carolina, because I am kind of confused about it from a how good is this job aspect. The one thing that you put on your list that I was like, was like Rhett Lashley. Like I think on the surface, it feels like North Carolina should be a better job than SMU. But when you look at the actual reality of it, like, are we sure that's even the case? Like,
and also Rhett just agreed to a new contract, so it would be very expensive to get him.
So yeah, like that to me. I went to North Carolina in 2020, as I mentioned on the show yesterday, and I sat in Mack Brown's office and we talked for an hour about his plan to build North Carolina. The state of North Carolina, from a talent aspect, is very underrated. They've got a lot of very good players there, and for the time being, Tennessee and teams were down at the moment, going back to 2020. The only team that they really had to fight against was Clemson, but they were winning recruiting battles for like Tony Grimes
Georgia too. Like they go get Todd Gurley or
yeah. But like it wasn't like a impossible feat for them to keep kids home. But if you've been paying close attention to their recruiting the last 2 years, you will notice that they are not competing with the same programs that they were competing with regularly when he got there. And I think you can make a straight line comparison or conclusion that the reason why they aren't there, and speaking to people near the program, Andy, I'm not just making this up, that they are not competitive in NIL. Like with Tennessee, for instance, if Tennessee wants to go into North Carolina and get a kid, they're going to go into North Carolina and get the kid. And that wasn't the case, 4 or 5, 3 years ago. So there is this question of whether or not, and like actually too, if you go like read North Carolina basketball message boards, you see a lot of complaining about their inability to compete in NIL for basketball players, which is at North Carolina insane. So how good is the job really? It's a beautiful campus. It's great academically. They've got gorgeous uniforms. They got the Air Jordan factor. Like there's a lot of things that you can sell there.
They also have a lot of money. Like they have a good donor base. This is not a poverty program, as the kids say.
Yeah, but at the same time too, I don't know if you've seen, like, I feel like if Mack Brown had every possible thing he could have needed at his disposal, he would have been more successful. And I actually think that North Carolina, a team that played in the ACC championship game literally last year, 2 years ago, like it's crazy to me. Like I think he was really good for them. And I don't know if it's just the result of being Macked, as you like to put it, where he sold me the vision. I understand he's getting up there in age. I think he's 73 years old.
I think if he put a better defense on the field, he would have had a better
But why didn't they is the question. If it was his fault, then he's gone, right? Like, but
you could say it was choice of defensive coordinators.
Yeah. So anyway, but like if a person takes this job, they have to go into it knowing that they're not as competitive with the teams that they have to beat for talent in NIL, and that makes it extremely difficult. But maybe that's changing now with the way that the sport's going to be set up financially. But like it's just a rough go of it to me.
Yeah, the revenue share piece of it, I think, does change it because North Carolina is going to have that money, the revenue share piece of it, which would be probably about $15 million. That's what everybody seems to be pegging for football. You heard Dabo talk about it the other day that Clemson's going to be on very equal footing with everybody else now. And I think that will help them be competitive in the transfer portal. You'll see them start taking transfers now. But it does come down to not just getting a roster, as we've seen. Like Ole Miss is a great example. Like you can get the roster and it still doesn't necessarily work. You've got to coach it well. You've got to do all the little things. And that's why I pointed out Sumrall, because you look at what he did at Troy, you look at what he's done in year one at Tulane. He's always got a good defense. He seems to always figure out a way to have an effective offense too. That's what you want. Now, I mentioned Arthur Smith on the hot board because we heard some chatter in the agent community about Arthur Smith. He's the Steelers offensive coordinator. He was the Falcons head coach. He's also the son of Fred Smith, who is the founder and chairman of FedEx. Now, we've seen FedEx do a lot of NIL stuff and corporate help stuff with Memphis in their hometown. It'd be nice, corporate money is kind of the key to the next step of this, Ari.
Well, I mean, like, yeah. If like we're a few days removed from Michigan getting a quarterback because a billionaire like got on the phone with him. It was just like, we're going to do this. Like the possibilities of what can be done. Like it's like the whole Phil Knight theory, Andy, of like, oh, I'm a billionaire. All this money is nothing to me. I care about this team. Here, take it. Like
Right.
I think that like that's not just corporate. That's just like independent wealth too. You know.
Well, I think you're going to need the corporate money because of the way they're going to structure this thing. Because they're going to say, oh, it's got to be true NIL. Okay. Well, big corporation hires you to do ads for them. That's true NIL.
The funny thing about billionaires is that they happen to be affiliated with a corporation of some kind. Like, you know what I mean?
Crazy
like,
how that always works, right?
So, like, I don't know if there's a lot of like billionaires out there that's like, I have no connections to anything.
Although I don't know that Bryce Underwood's going to be doing any Oracle ads. The craziest part is
why not?
The craziest part is Larry Ellison went to Illinois.
I know, that's my favorite.
His wife went to Michigan, and that should prove more than anything else.
If you're an Illinois fan, you're just like, what the.
Well, Illinois got Larry Ellison and Shad Khan, the owner of the Jaguars. Now, I think there may be some rules there about an NFL owner.
Yeah.
Because there may be some tampering rules that have to do with the NFL draft and everything. But yeah, I think we're going to see Bryce Underwood on Barstool. Obviously, Dave Portnoy had a lot to do with that. And
that they're going to start making like Bryce Underwood like clothes and stuff.
Well, yeah. Well, I was expecting Nico pajama pants to take off, and they never did. So
yeah, so that was always the thing with him, right? Because I went to 4 camps and he always wore pajama pants.
Yeah, that was the thing, but it didn't become the big thing I thought it would.
Well, does he wear them to class? I hope he kept that energy.
Do you think he has classes that aren't online?
I don't know. Does he wear it to
2024, Ari?
Does he wear it to the union?
The world works anymore.
Listen, okay, here's what I'm going to tell you, buddy. Okay, and you can listen here and listen good, Lassie. If I'm the starting quarterback of Tennessee's football team and I am 19 and hopefully single, I'm going to be all over campus, whether I have an online class or not. I don't know what you're doing, but the whole point of being
you're just dropping pins everywhere. Ladies, here's where I am. Here's where you can find me.
What are we talking about? He just is a recluse who sits in his dorm all day and does online classes and just goes to and from the building to his apartment back and forth. Get out of here. I'm going to be at the Union having a Big Mac in front of all the honeys.
Saucy Nuggs, ladies.
Kids,
come get your saucy Nuggs.
when you were in college, what was your number one concern?
The ladies.
We're 19-year-old boys. And now imagine being the hottest thing on campus.
But it's not as much of a concern when you are like a rich guy and there's probably quite a few who you would be targeting who are just basically, all right, here I am. So they're not thinking the way we had to think. We had to work. Also
too. I know, but like, I'm not even in it for like the fun part. I'm in it for like, I want to be lauded. I want people to applaud for me in public. You know what I mean? That's not just a girl thing. Like, I want people to be like, there's Nico.
You don't feel uncomfortable? That wouldn't make you uncomfortable?
I think I would do really well with being famous. Like, I think
pageant wave. Can you do the pageant wave for me?
I'd be like, oh, look, there's Ari. I know, I'm great, aren't I? Like, yeah, it's amazing. Or at least I think I would do it well for a year. But I think being the QB1 at a SEC school would be a pretty great existence. And I wouldn't want to waste that time by being a shut-in in my dorm room.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the honesty.
And if I were Nico, I would wear the pajama pants everywhere I went. Because that would be a nice little way to get a apparel deal or something.
Yeah, it's your brand. So James Franklin has developed a brand.
He has.
Thanksgiving week every year has a tradition. If you are asking questions in his press conference, you must answer a question from him regarding Thanksgiving dinner. So that press conference took place this week ahead of the Maryland game. Here is a supercut of James Franklin and the Penn State beat writers giving some very interesting Thanksgiving takes.
Rich, in the last 2 days,
Rich.
Yes?
Thanksgiving press conference. We got a tradition around here.
Okay, white meat.
No. I got all my questions written down here. Yeah, and actually, I think you missed that one. white meat or dark
I
meat.
did miss that.
Yeah, add it to the list. All right, turkey or ham?
Turkey.
Turkey. Is there a reason why you justify your decision?
It's called Turkey Day for a reason, isn't it?
Okay. And what type of what part of the turkey do you eat?
White meat.
And do you use gravy?
Yes.
And do you eat the turkey and the gravy alone, or do you take a little bit of mashed potatoes, a little bit of stuffing, a little bit of corn, a little bit? How do you do it?
I take a little bit of everything.
On one bite.
Sometimes. I don't really think about it.
What I'm saying is when you eat the turkey, do you eat it on its own with gravy, or do you include other things in that bite?
Hey, James, happy Thanksgiving in advance.
You too, Mark. How you doing, man?
Good. What do you got for me?
All right, here we go. Pumpkin or sweet potato pie? I know the answer.
I'm going to go sweet potato. Pumpkin's overrated. So,
Mark.
Absolutely.
Afternoon, James.
Hey,
How are
Mike.
ya?
Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm good.
All right, I got one for you.
Yep.
Fried turkey or roasted turkey?
You know, I've never had the fried turkey, so I got to go roasted. Maybe that's a lame answer, but
It's not a lame answer. You can't answer because you haven't had.
yeah, that's true. It's reality.
Would
Yeah,
you be open to it? All right, here you go. You ready?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Thanksgiving dinner or whatever the time you eat, that whatever time it is, whether it's a lunch, dinner, whether it's a dinner, all that's fine. But Thanksgiving dinner or the leftovers?
Where do you fall on the sweet potato versus pumpkin pie debate?
I think they kind of taste similar, to be honest, but I like pumpkin.
That's what I would say too. I like the just the forcefulness of James Franklin's answer. Now later he said why, because he had a group of aunts that was all of them were great at making sweet potato pie. So that I think it's more of a sense, you know, it's more of a memory of them and the love of them than the pie itself. Because I agree with you. I don't know that sweet potato pie and pumpkin pie are that different in flavor profile.
I don't think I've ever had fried turkey either.
It's spectacular.
Yeah.
It's spectacular. I know me and how clumsy I am. And I'm just imagining a turkey turned into a projectile. Now, that's what happens if you drop a frozen turkey in oil. Like, I don't think I would be that stupid, but I just have a feeling I would figure out how to do something incredibly stupid.
Yeah. I like that James Franklin did that. Because, like, he was into the answers, too. He's like, Like,
I love he's writing down like he's taking notes.
Yeah. Like, whether or not you're... but, like, it is my favorite holiday. I don't know about you. Is it your favorite one, too?
It's a day built around food and football. Is there anything better than that?
Like, I like it better than Christmas Day. And, you know, save the Jewish stuff. We also enjoy Christmas because it's
of course
not festive and we get the day off, too. Thanksgiving is just football and smashing food. And it's always beautiful weather outside. I love the crisp of the fall air, and I love it. So, anyway, we go in. I'm in charge of the sides this year. We're going over to some friends' houses because you and I have a date on Saturday, and we couldn't leave town. I have a take I've been meaning to get off my chest, and I don't know if you are with me on this. And I don't know if it's because you think I'm a raccoon or a garbage rat or whatever it is.
Trash panda, which is just another phrase that means raccoon.
Yeah, I'm a trash panda. I think that the best side that you can get is boxed stuffing. Boxed stuffing. Like, I think it's so
boxed by whom?
Stovetop.
Okay.
Like, people go and get like gourmet. But people go get gourmet stuffing. They got cornbread stuffing. They got stuffing with sausage in it. Like,
right, or they make their own cornbread, then they make the stuffing. Like, okay, all right.
Like, the best stuffing on earth comes out of the stovetop box. And I could smash that. I don't think that's that hard to take. Okay, I'm just saying it's my favorite side, period.
Yeah, because really you're talking about you're letting bread go stale And then you're shoving it in the cavity of the bird if you do it that way. Or like in the South, there's a lot more where they do it in a dish and they call it dressing instead of stuffing, but it's the same thing.
I thought those were synonyms. Is there a different way to make them?
No, well, one you make in the cavity of the bird, like they call it stuffing because you actually literally stuff that stuff into the cavity of the bird. The grease drips down and cooks it while it's in the bird. The other one, you're just doing it in a dish, cooking it in the oven. But ingredient wise, they're very similar.
But the best Thanksgiving side, and I think that you and I, because you're Mr. Famous macaroni and cheese, right? That's the holiday you make your macaroni and cheese.
I'm making it tonight because I pre-make and then I just bake it on Thanksgiving Day.
But I think that macaroni and cheese is the best side, period. Like
the king of
the
sides.
best side on earth. Any day of the year. Stuffing is the best Thanksgiving side. Like that is like it is. We don't because do you ever eat stuffing from stovetop any other day of the year? Because I don't. Like the only time I ever have stuffing. Do people make stuffing for dinner like in February?
I assume somebody does.
But stuffing is the official flavor of Thanksgiving. When I think of Thanksgiving, I think of stuffing.
Yeah, I can live with that. Ari, we need to have a further discussion of this. I tell you what we'll do. We're going to give folks a Thursday show. I understand if you guys are busy with your families and aren't going to be around, but I know a lot of you are going to be driving this weekend, might need something to listen to. We're going to give you a Thursday show where we answer your questions, and we've already got some really good Dear Andy and Dear Ari questions, and we're going to draft Thanksgiving sides. I worry it may get contentious. But I feel like Ari and I are off to a good start. We've made it this far with these takes, and nobody's gotten mad yet. So that's good. We may bring in Scott Docterman to bring his cottage cheese.
Yeah, that was the most psychopathic thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
Scott Docterman.
Another thing,
The Athletic, was like
another one too. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
We were doing a similar exercise a couple of years ago on the show.
We were drafting sides.
And he says cottage cheese. And it was the record scratch, needle drop. Like, what? Our jaws just hit the floor. But yes, apparently in Iowa, Nebraska, in that part of the country, at Thanksgiving, occasionally there's a big old bowl of cottage cheese and people will just kind of scoop out of it.
Andy, the thing that didn't make it egregious, the thing that made it egregious wasn't that he said cottage cheese, is that we were drafting sides. It was a draft.
And there was a lot left.
There was a lot left. Like, I think like turkey was still there or whatever. And like, he's like cottage cheese with the third overall pick. I'm like, what the that would have been, that's an undrafted free agent, Scott. No one's drafting cottage cheese in front of you. Exactly. And that was the thing that made it the worst. But like also too, the thing that I've noticed, and I guess like I've never done this for me. A lot of people, and I saw the On3 had a little Thanksgiving feast yesterday at their office in Nashville. I don't know. Were you invited? Because I was not invited to that.
I was not invited.
They had deviled eggs there, and I'm a deviled egg guy.
Mm-hmm.
I love a good deviled egg. Is that a Thanksgiving side for people? Because somebody posted here in the chat deviled eggs, and I didn't know.
I do think
normal thing.
Or a Thanksgiving appetizer for sure.
Like, would people draft deviled eggs?
I would think so.
Okay.
I would, yeah, because especially like in the South, like deviled eggs are a very common appetizer for any sort of family gathering. Like there's that tray of deviled eggs, and I'm not a big deviled egg person, but
there's mayonnaise in it.
I have family members that would just house a whole tray of deviled eggs. So
yeah,
that is a very common like family gathering appetizer or side dish. But yeah. So, in fact, there may be deviled eggs at the one I'm going to my mother-in-law's house because it's one of those that everybody's bringing something. So, I, of course, am making mac and cheese. You can make it along with me. So, the mac and cheese I make is the mac and cheese they make at Clarkston Union, which is a restaurant in Clarkston, Michigan. And I had it for the first time when I went to Union Woodshop, which is their sister barbecue restaurant. And I'm like, this is the best mac and cheese I've ever had in my life. Now, I don't use the very special only in Michigan cheeses that they use. One, because I can't get them where I live. But two, I found the kids don't like it as much. when you go a little bit exotic with the cheeses. So my cheese is a little more conventional, but I cook it the same way. It's so freaking good. I can't take any credit for it. I just follow the recipe. All I added was a little bit of crumbled up bacon, but it is so freaking good. And the recipe is on the internet. So if you guys want to try it, go get your heavy cream.
He sent me the pic, and it was just like was like the dude from Jurassic Park with the glasses the first time I saw it.
It is.
Lastly,
it's so good,
Andy. And I know we were going to try to keep this short, but I got to say one more thing. The most elite way, because James Franklin asked us in the video, to eat your plate, in my opinion, and obviously I've had struggles with keeping my weight down in the past and currently. The best way to make a plate is to take one of the rolls, to cut the roll open, and to put everything on the sandwich the way that they do at Wawa. The
gobbler.
Or the gobbler, yeah. That's how I actually make my plate at Thanksgiving. Like I will take a roll, and I'm like my wife knows, get buns.
You throw some rolls. Cranberry sauce in there too, right?
Cranberry sauce.
I feel like
turkey.
That's what makes when you do the Thanksgiving on a sandwich, you need here are the crucial ingredients: turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing, gravy, cranberry sauce.
Cranberry sauce.
That's your Thanksgiving on a sandwich.
And I'll throw some corn on there if there's corn too, because I like the texture of that.
Okay.
I think corn and mashed potatoes is an electric combination. It's just starch and starch, bud. That's all it is.
Now I want a Thanksgiving Day sandwich.
But that's how to me, like that's the epitome of Thanksgiving.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. Ari, we will have this conversation in greater detail tomorrow. Everybody, if we don't see you tomorrow, if you're busy, I understand. Have a happy and healthy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the games this weekend. Otherwise, get your ass back here tomorrow and argue with us about Thanksgiving sides. We'll talk to you then.